To Salam Media.
The time is just gone 10 minutes past 8 a.m. as we kick off this morning, taking a look at the big picture. And we are talking about yesterday, we're talking about history that was made on the 25th of May, 1963, with the foundation of the Organization of African Unity. And Africa Day, as it was celebrated yesterday, to acknowledge the successes of the OAU, which is now called the AU. But looking at the continent, we know there have been common challenges right across the continent, and this is in the face of the global environment, and also looking at issues surrounding colonialism and the impact of colonialism. Now, we have got the director of the Center for Africa-China Studies at the University of Johannesburg, Professor David Monyae, to unpack and to tell us more. Professor David Monyae, good morning to you, sir, and welcome to the show.
Good morning to you and to all listeners.
Yes, Prof, as we commemorated Africa Day yesterday and looking at the continent as a whole, we know that there are challenges. And last night, I actually did a 1 hour show unpacking some of the key issues on the African continent. And we know that the continent was colonized. There are many, many challenges. And looking at yesterday, what did this actually mean for Africa, for the African continent?
I think when you look at Africa for the past 2 decades, there has been so many achievements. Africa is in a better place today than it was 2 decades or 3 or 4 decades ago. However, there are indeed, as we have mentioned, a number of challenges, and those challenges can be seen from 3 or 4 areas. One to do with the historical, the colonial, neo-colonial, that even though we gained our independence, we still have vestiges of colonial influence and impact in terms of Africa's place in the world trade, world politics, which is very unfair. Africa does not receive any favorable in any negotiation. It's not a member of United Nations Security Council. It's not involved in major, other than South Africa, in IMF, World Bank, G20, and that puts Africa in a very awkward situation. We also have problems that have to do with our own internal issues, poor governance. I think that's the main. That is coupled with a lot of conflicts across the entire continent. And you cannot develop without peace and security. So you still have lots and lots of destabilization, really open wars. A country like Congo, which is the DRC, which is extremely rich in not just mineral resource, just the human capital, the people. And therefore, up to now, that country cannot have full control of what's happening in its own in its own boundaries. In the eastern part of the DRC, there's still destabilization. The M23 is still giving that country a bit of challenge. In a number of areas, I mean, our neighbor Mozambique, they found minerals, and all of a sudden, the destabilization in that part of the country. So issues of governance, issues of institutions that are not, which has to do with the elections and how to manage the state in terms of skills, they're still lacking. And therefore, I think out of 55 African countries, there's also this uneven development. Some countries are much more developed, others are in the middle rank, and you have your poorest, such as your Lesotho, Malawi, and smaller countries. And therefore, the need for regional integration is the only way that will take us out of most of these problems. One, it will enlarge our markets, and it will also make us protect much smaller countries in terms of dealing with these issues.
Yes. Now, Prof, also there are both internal and external factors that determine the direction that the African continent is taking. And one needs to take into account because we know, even though the colonizers have left, as you mentioned, neocolonialism is an issue, but also this scramble for Africa. We know the African continent is of huge interest to the major powers right across the entire world. Hence, the scramble for Africa, for its resources. The continent is still very, very rich resource wise. And that scramble is still going to take place. And the key issue here, and when I say external factors, is how do they position themselves to get their hands on the resources of the continent?
Oh, yes, we still have that. But if you look with the transformation of the OAU to AU in 2002, that was a huge landmark, massive achievement. We have a number of institutions, African Parliament, which sits here. You have the APRM, you have the NEPAD process, the courts at the legal level. But all these institutions haven't been strengthened and to work and to really push Africa's interest. When Africa also reached an agreement that with a document that is called the African Partnership, that the leadership at the continental level agree that for us to develop, we need strategic partners from all over the world. However, when whether it's United States, European Union, China, Japan, Germany, and all these countries, they need to come on the African continent in terms of working with us. But we need to lead in that process. With an African agency, we also need to direct them what are our priorities on the African continent. This is working with so many countries, but we still have other issues. A number of these powerful countries are just establishing military bases on our continent without our permission. They just move in. And others, they come with different funny programs, such as training your military. In the end, the very same military that is being trained in West Africa are the ones who are staging coups. So you really don't know whether they're behind the coups or not. So there are systems that at times you don't ask for, then they lead on it. Where we really need bridges, roads, ports, we need that kind of assistance in those areas. But at the end of the day, I think it depends on us as Africans to learn these skills, to depend less on foreign in key areas. The African free trade, we don't need any donor to assist us in that area. You cannot ask people you're going to trade with and you're asking them to train your own negotiators or to set up your secretariat. It doesn't make sense. You cannot depend on foreign powers, as the case now. 75% of the African Union peacekeeping is dependent on foreign powers. And that is a misnomer. You can't security and most importantly, food. We cannot depend on food from outsiders. We have some of the richest land. 60% of arable land in the world is here in Africa. We should be able to utilize that so that we don't get these patronizing statements that whenever they have their wars, such as in Ukraine, they just talk about poor Africans and the pandemics in health. We should be able to anticipate more pandemics, and therefore I think more efforts need to be taken in education, developing skills, and establishing pharmaceuticals so that we play an active role in the entire vaccine global value chain.
Yes, interesting, Prof. When you speak about strategic partnership, And when one defines a partnership, it's got to be a partnership in every sense of the word. We cannot have one a dominating partner, but at the same time, you make a very, very good case and a good point where you say we should be leading and not being dictated to. And I think this is where we are having a problem, or we're becoming, we're getting unstuck as far as that strategic partnership goes. That we are the followers and others are leading us and providing the direction or the trajectory that the country or the continent needs to go.
Indeed. I'll give you a classical example. As we speak, we can see with rains in Durban, the disaster, that climate change is becoming a core issue. While we all agree that climate change and we need to do something about it, we need to play a critical role in directing our industries and lessen our dependence on dirty energy such as coal. But in doing so, it has to be done in a very delicate way. You cannot have other powers dictating to South Africa that switch off from coal overnight, and then you go into this clean energy. Yes, that's what we want, and that's what we need to do. But as a bigger picture, we are polluting the world less, and the demands that are made on us, we don't produce these new technologies. And therefore, I think we need to follow what India is doing. We are going to do lessen our dependence on coal in a gradual way. So you have a province such as Mpumalanga. It means that unemployment is going to get worse. We are sitting at 65% unemployment among the youth, and some go up to 70, 75. This is unsustainable. I mean, when you talk about coups, destabilization, violence, I mean, these are the seeds for such violence in any society. And therefore, I think we need to be very serious in terms of we elect our leaders, leaders that are less corrupt and not corrupt at all, and hard on corruption, and ensure that those who manage these departments are people with skills. They know what they're doing. And so that when we engage the external actors, we engage them on equal path and know exactly what we want, and then execute those plans.
Prof, we're just going to put you on hold. We're going to go for a quick ad break. We'll be back with you.
Seed oil being applied by my nanny. Now I'm using Tib black seed in my own home to soothe sniffles and coughs, to help with digestion and immunity, and of course, as part of my beauty routine. After all these years, I've come to appreciate the wisdom in finding comfort and shifa in trusted treatments like Tib black seed. You can find Tib black seed at all leading pharmacies or find out more at blackseed.co.za.
One of the most important things you can do on this earth is to let people know they are not alone, that the frustration of communities who struggle to earn the very basic is not their cry alone. Discharging your zakah is the starting point for creating a sustainable community and taking action. It's the impetus for creating lasting change and hope. Donate your zakah to the Al-Fida Foundation, supporting over 10,000 Muslim families in the Eastern and Western Cape of South Africa. We need your help to assist our neighbors of need. Contact the Al-Fida Foundation at 041-484-1288 or view or visit our website at www.alfida.co.za. The Al-Fida Foundation, your partner in social investment.
At Sentio, our Invest for Good philosophy is based on a real desire to use our investment skills for the benefit of broader society. We are committed to supporting our community by investing responsibly, giving charitably, and developing talent that will transform the investment industry. As an ethically based asset manager, we are focused on delivering superior risk-adjusted returns for our clients, regardless of market conditions. Visit us at www.sentio-capital.com for more information on our Sharia investment products, and start saving with us today. Sentio Capital Management. Invest for good. Sentio Capital Management is an authorized financial services provider.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media, your humanitarian broadcaster.
We continue with the show this morning with the Director of Center for Africa-China Studies at the University of Johannesburg, Professor David Monyae, looking at the big picture, looking at Africa, looking at the celebration and the acknowledgement of the Organization of African Unity, now the AU, and that was yesterday, May, since its creation on the 25th of May, 1963. Now, Professor David Monyae, just to continue and looking at South Africa, and we have been talking about strategic partnerships. Now, one such strategic partnership is BRICS. And looking at South Africa, looking at our position within the BRICS coalition in terms of both benefit to the country, but also at the same time, this coalition, has it meant much? Have we achieved what we needed to achieve through this partnership or through the strategic partnership with the other nations in the BRICS coalition?
I think the answer is yes and no. There are areas where South Africa has had an advantage in terms of its standing within international multilateral institution. South Africa's voice is taken quite serious on any issue. And that is to do with its position, its standing on the African continent, and the mere fact that it's also a member of a powerful forum such as BRICS. And let's also look at the advantages that we have. China, the second biggest economy, the driver of BRICS anyway. There won't be BRICS without China. And you have bigger economies such as India, Russia, and Brazil. And therefore, since 1994, the thinking within ANC-led government was we have traditional partners, and our relationship with these former colonial powers, United States and others, is very strong, and our trade looks only to the West. And therefore, within ANC, there was a need that we need to strengthen what then the DTI called the butterfly strategy. The main aim was that we need to spread our trade to go into the global south. And therefore, we need to diversify our trade. And that is good, because if you have any conflict with any part of the world and you are 100% dependent on them, you are in trouble. So as it stands, our trade, as you can see, is shifting more to Asian countries. And we're doing extremely well in that regard. We need to expand and work on it so that we benefit more in terms of our agricultural products. We need to open, we need to refine our minerals so that we don't sell raw material. We need to beneficiate, ensure that we add value to what we sell to bigger markets such as China and India and Russia. So there's a lot of potential, but all depends on us. How much do we strengthen our own products and bring more traders into the global value chain beyond China, into former Eastern Europe, former Soviet Union bloc? The number of countries, Kazakhstan, and that we don't have. We have Philippines on the other. These are big countries. There are a lot of opportunities we need to strengthen so that we're not dependent on one single country.
Well, certainly, and I see there is a question that's just come up on the screen. Norman Rapallo saying, what is the reason for South Africa to sign an energy agreement with Germany that needs more energy than us after the cancellation of Russian energy contracts? Who is going to benefit in this relationship?
I think we all have trust in our government that there has been a lot of thinking. The agreement, I think, is with SASO, where there's a lot of knowledge within South Africa. In any way, we turning coal into oil in this country. And therefore, those skills we need to use and ensure that Germany, a very technical country, I think the relationship, it just goes beyond the energy issue. It's also to train our people. There's this shift in thinking that we need to follow the German way. I think that will help. It really depends how it is implemented. However, having said that, we also have to be very careful and cautious, so ensure that we do not rush into these agreements without thinking, and ensure that it's not just benefit. I think even the word benefit who within South Africa. What we have these monopoly companies that are benefiting, and that wealth is not trickling down to the masses. That's our biggest problem. And some of us are looking at whether it's BEE or any other form. Something terribly went wrong. I think we need to rethink some of these things, so that whether it's BEE, it has to be community-based. It should be individual. This idea of enriching individuals is bringing us into trouble, and therefore, or enriching few companies. The usual suspect, they benefited during the apartheid, and they continue to benefit now. And the status of our people is still the same. We need to go in rural areas, former Bantu states, ensure that we turn things around, to relocate some of these companies, give them certain benefits in terms of tax, points that they need, BE points, so that we have better schools, better infrastructure, internet in those areas, and be hard on the issue of education. We need to educate our people. Skills, and then people need to use their hands to do business, and those skills are needed. And therefore, the Germans are quite good. They've been doing extremely well. They have a big market share in our country in terms of vehicles and other. And I think we need to take advantage of that to strengthen the relationship even further.
Well, Prof, thank you very much for that, for unpacking what you have with us this morning, for your time. We do appreciate you taking time out and talking to us on the big picture this morning. All the best to you. We wish you well.
Thank you. You too.
Professor David Monyae, Director of the Center for Africa-China Studies at the University of Johannesburg, with us this morning. The big picture, looking at Africa Day, what it actually means for the continent, and also unpacking some of the key issues that impact on us here in South Africa through strategic partnerships like, for instance, the BRICS partnership. We're going to go for a break. We come back, we're going to take a look at Pakistan. A lot happening in Pakistan. Imran Khan on a roll with all the rallies and the marches, but yesterday the PTI march turned violent as police tried to stop the marches. So Yaqub, Pakistani-based, will unpack for us this morning.